Hello everyone. Today we're taking a look at the ASD recessed LED mini panels. I personally think their square design offers a more modern aesthetic than the very common circular ones, but that does come with a slightly more complicated install. In this video I'll show you what comes in the box, how to prep for wiring, how I like to install the junction boxes, how to mount the panels, and then finally we'll take a look at how well they perform when paired with a dimmer. So let's get to it, starting with that unboxing. Inside each box, we'll find the LED panel itself, some poorly written instructions, the combination power supply and junction box, as well as a sticker that acts as a mounting template. For anyone curious, this particular panel is in the brushed nickel finish. I just thought that would be a little more fun than your run-of-the-mill white.
Alright guys, so this is what they look like when it comes out of the box. So to make this up, I mean, obviously the junction box gets mounted first, and then the panel itself is mounted when our wall is finished. So first thing I do is you just unscrew the water resistant coupler there and just pull it apart. Next I like to just kind of make it up down here. So the first thing you're gonna have to do is pop out a couple of these knockouts. There's 3 of them on here. They're all 1/2 inch, so when you go to the hardware store, make sure whatever non-metallic or metallic clamp you buy is for a 1/2 inch knockout. Grab your screwdriver and just give it a little push, and it just still come right out there. This junction box does come pre-wired with some push-in connectors. I don't like these at all. Not because they're not convenient. I don't like them because they don't give you a whole lot of room for error. So I'm just going to take my flush cut pliers and take them off. The reason I do this is because I'm going to replace them with some lever nuts. Being this is an electronic device, it can fail. And I would just prefer to have a removable style connector instead of this style where once you push the wire in you can't really do anything about it if you need to fix it. With the lever nuts, basically it'll give you a very strong connection, but it will also give you the ability to fix things a little easier if you should have to do any work in wall later on. This is just a 3/8 non-metallic clamp, so this is what holds the Romex cable going into it and going out of it. They actually do make what are called lock nut wrenches, but a lot of times if you just push on the end here with a screwdriver to tighten them, or you can just kind of turn this if the lock nut has bitten in there nicely. Problem is you kind of have to keep in mind that that will be going up against a stud, so you don't want it at a weird angle or anything. Alright guys, so this is kind of picking up where we left off. This is the last light in my series, so I only need to bring in 1 Romex over here. So I'm pulling that over here from the second to last one, and I'm going to pull a little bit more than I need. I like to make what's known as a service loop. It's basically a little loop right there. And the purpose of this is to make it a lot easier if you do have a problem down the road to potentially remedy any repairs. So what this does here is it just gives me a little bit of extra wiggle room so that I ever need to try and get up here with the finished ceiling on to try and remedy this. The only thing about this is not all inspectors love these. I've read some debate on forums about how appropriate they are. Some electricians seem to love them, some seem to hate them. I've done them here residentially at my house and I've never had a problem passing inspection, but if you're worried that might be the case, maybe just double check with your city planning department, or be like most people and forego the inspection. That's bad advice, but I know a lot of people do. So anyway, I'll just tack that in place. And right there, I'm just using a 14-2 Romex staple. Now you'll notice on your Romex, there's actually a little indentation there about where you're supposed to cut. It's right in between the neutral and the ground wire. I guess the thought being that if you accidentally nick a conductor, it's better to nick the neutral than the hot, although you really shouldn't nick either, and if you do, you should start over. But, you know, at least that's my thought on why it's placed there. Sorry if my elbows or whatever get in the way here. It's kind of an awkward angle to be filming out with me up on a ladder and the camera down on a tripod. Of course, when you're using your wire strippers to pull off the wire insulation, make sure you use the appropriate hole. So inside the junction box, it's actually just 18 gauge stranded. So 18 gauge stranded is what we'll set it at. All right, and we're good to go. Let me grab those lever nuts. All right, so now as you see here, I've got my lever nuts. So superior to wire nuts. Just snap right in there. And again, the whole reason I'm using wire nuts and putting in service loops is to make any future maintenance easier. Typically, an LED is rated to have something like a 50,000 hour service life, which sounds like a lot. I suppose it is. Except if you run the math, that's 24/7 for about 5 years, which also sounds like a lot, but it's not as long as a house exists. So, if these fail down the line, they may or they may not, then just having these little touches in there like that is just going to make any remedy of that situation so much easier. Here we go, look at that. They'll tuck in there like such. Nice and clean-ish. All right, guys, so what I did next, I kind of just made some little temporary, you should call them mounting squares, just to put these in place before the finished ceiling is on. I think they look really, really nice. You can see they're kind of powered on right now. The whole point of doing this was just kind of wanted to give them a couple days to break in, make sure there were no problems before I put the finished ceiling on. So yeah, they've been running for about 2 days straight now, and no problems at all. They dim nicely. I have a Lutron Diva Plus LED dimmer that seems to work really well with them. So I think next step is to disconnect them and put the finished ceiling on.
Because these are square, we really need to keep them lined up when installing. Here I've thrown up a string that I can line up the mounting templates on, so everything will be nice and straight when mounted. To make a square cut, I'm using my oscillating multi-tool with a plunge cut bit attached. I really like these tools. Once you get used to operating them, you can get pretty surgical. The other method to do this would be to drill a corner hole and then follow the pattern with a jigsaw. While that works, I prefer the oscillator here as I can really control the cutting depth, which is important when there are wires and junction boxes right on the other side. When we've made our hole, and if your measurements are correct, the low voltage pigtails should be right there. Next, just screw the connection together and use the integrated spring clamps to snap into place. Super easy.
All right, guys, so here they are, flush installed. They certainly look very nice, I would say. I do want to show you guys one more thing though, and that's just kind of how they dim, and one little quirk I found about that. All right, so here they are on full power, and as we've talked about before, these are dimmable, which is really nice. That's about as high as it goes, and then that's dimmed down. The one disclaimer on this is that I know it's sometimes really hard to capture lighting levels on camera, with the camera always trying to adjust exposure and whatnot. But they do get pretty low. I will tell you one quirk though. So they're dimmed all the way down right now, and if I flip them off, you hear that switch? They won't flip back on. So you have to raise the dim level, there they come, and then you can lower them back down. So it's like they require some kind of minimum starting voltage to get going. that might be a little confusing if you weren't familiar with it. You might just think your lights were broken or something because you have them dimmed down, you flip them on, and they just wouldn't come on. So you'd think something was wrong, but if you just raise up that dim level, then they'll pop right back on. But overall, very nice. So there's all the way up again, and there's all the way down.
So overall, a really nice product, provided they last. And or the manufacturer honors their 5-year warranty. I'm totally thrilled with them.